welcome to Chicago Shakespeare Theater. I'm Brooke Flanagan, the Director of Institutional Advancement, and this is the Tessitura Innovator series, Moving the Needle, from Cultural Policy to Community Engagement. In 2009, an alarming study was released from the University of Chicago Cultural Policy Center. Although Chicago had evolved into a world-class city with cultural institutions known internationally, vast swaths of the people of our city were not engaging in our work. This epidemic was not a singular phenomenon. For years, artists and arts administrators had struggled with the lack of diversity of ethnicity, race, and socioeconomic background in our audiences. At Chicago Shakespeare Theater, we offered a broad range of productions and international work from across the globe that connected us to the diverse neighborhoods of Chicago. We also had a strong education program that impacted more than 40,000 students and teachers each year. And even though the resulting makeup of our audiences was more diverse in age and ethnicity than many of our peers, we also had yet to find a solution to these massive blue fields from that University of Chicago study, which represent the cultural deserts in our city that were not being engaged in our work. So, what to do? Like others in the field, we tried to solve this problem by offering free and reduced-priced programs at our institution and activated community programs that sought to dispel the cultural palace perception of the general public. But that wasn't enough for us. We came to realize that in order to authentically engage the totality of Chicago, we had to acknowledge that the barriers to participation were as diverse as the people residing in our great city. The data-informed realities showed that offering free days at our home on Navy Pier was not sufficient. Cost, proximity to culture, and ease of transportation, among other factors, were creating the real barriers. And in the end, as a nonprofit cultural partner for our city, it was our responsibility to be part of the solution. And so, we dreamed up a program called Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks. Shakespeare being performed in parks wasn't a new concept, but we decided to approach it in a new way. We envisioned a professional production that would tour free for all to the most culturally underserved of our communities. And we were going to need big partners to make it happen. Luckily, we operate in a city that makes no small plans. In 2012, our newly elected mayor, Emanuel, and our Commissioner of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, Michelle Boone, conducted a citywide cultural plan with hundreds of town halls where residents expressed the desire to have more arts programming in their neighborhoods. While the idea for Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks was conceived long before the plan's creation, we knew its launch could help answer its call to action. But in order to do so, we needed to establish a new model of collaboration. A bold initiative of this scale required a cultural partner, us at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, a civic partner, who we have found in the Chicago Park District and its commissioner, Mike Kelly, and a corporate partner, the Boeing Company, who provided a vital seed grant to launch the program, and BMO Harris Bank, who joined Boeing in support of this innovative project. In 2012, together, this cultural, civic, corporate alliance piloted Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks. True to form for Chicago, our ambitions were far larger than your typical pilot program. We selected 11 parks across the city that would bridge social and cultural divides, activating those blue zone cultural deserts with world-class theater and offering more Chicagoans access to our work. The Chicago Park District helped us identify neighborhoods that needed us the most, particularly those facing economic challenges and a higher crime rate. In a city where most cultural offerings are located in the center of our municipality, we made sure our work was serving the farthest north, south, and west side communities, neighborhoods where our presence could deepen community ties and build on relationships our education programs had forged through our literacy programs. To ensure that Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks was a true, community-driven, and embraced event, we knew we had to rethink our traditional arts marketing approach to attract new audiences. In addition to employing the well-honed marketing and PR strategies of our industry, we expanded into non-traditional methods. We hired a multicultural team of community connectors. These CST employees recruited community members to get the word out in the ways they thought would connect with their neighbors. No idea was off limits, including this lovingly crafted chalk art advertisement. And truly, our team of community connectors was tenacious. They were on the ground, traveling door to door, forging relationships with community members and leaders alike. They spent countless hours flyering, postering, and leveraging newfound partnerships to draw in new audiences. Neighborhood partners helped us activate an extensive social media campaign that shared our story. We spent months forging authentic relationships in our 11 distinct neighborhoods. We got to know aldermen, neighborhood councils, community stakeholders, houses of worship, and social service organizations. We attended more town hall meetings than we could count. And we made sure we showed up when it mattered to our partners, like this peace rally hosted by one of our partner organizations in the Pilsen neighborhood, home to Dvorak Park. All told, we built authentic relationships with hundreds of partners across the city. We worked with each community to develop bilingual programs and public service announcements that played on local radio stations, and sought public endorsement of a leading community member or group whenever possible. Here's a staff member with Alderman Sawyer, the representative for Hamilton Park, one of the 11 locations featured in the pilot program. It was a big gamble. We had crossed over into political campaign organizing tactics, and we had no idea if this was going to work. Sure, Shakespeare's universal, and our cast represented the demographics of our city, but when you get down to it, we weren't sure if our first production would draw. But boy, did it. In our first year, we traveled to 11 parks and drew 11,000 attendees. At the heart of the program was our commitment to theatrical artistry. Our production and artistic teams made sure that the work we were touring to the community was of the same caliber of our internationally acclaimed productions at home. A mobile stage transformed each park into a venue. The production design featured a full complement of lighting, sound, costumes, wigs, and makeup, and our cast was phenomenal. In order to showcase the artistic expression of each community, we scouted an opening act from the neighborhood to be featured as our green show, a tradition established in the Elizabethan era. From mariachi to opera, flamenco, and rock and roll, we featured artists that could help celebrate the artistic breadth and depth of the community surrounding each park. The partners who endorsed our work were featured at each park we toured to. We shared the stage with aldermen, senators, and neighborhood council members. Local food vendors saw great business from our audiences, and often from our performers. Chicago Shakespeare Theater is known for our gracious guest services staff. We wanted to make sure we offered the same experience to our guests in the parks, and so we adapted our front-of-house approach to support the outdoor environment. At every possible entrance, and I do mean every possible entrance, we made sure that a Chicago Shakespeare Theater staff member greeted each patron with a smile, a program book, and what has become a signature of the program, our Shakespeare fan. Staff mingled with patrons once seated on the lawn, and together we created a festival-like experience. The response was astonishing. We had people coming up to us with gratitude we had never experienced at our artistic home, and we were truly, truly humbled by remarks like, "Thank you for not forgetting us and our community. Thank you for your belief that my child deserves culture too. Thank you for helping us program our parks with meaningful work." It was overwhelming. One particular story that still touches my heart is when a father shared with me that he was able to bring his autistic son to the performance. Typically, he was unable to share cultural experiences with his son for fear of causing a disruption. But in their local park, surrounded by their neighbors, he and his son enjoyed our play without worry or distraction. Chicago Mayor Emanuel joined us for our final performance at the Garfield Park Conservatory and was floored by what he saw. 800 people had gathered in this beautiful park on the west side of our city, nearly doubling its record daily attendance. And in this spectacular green space, surrounded by a neighborhood often plagued with violence, an audience comprised of all ages, races, and even a few dogs enjoyed a world-class performance of The Taming of the Shrew. It was a sight to behold, and it showed great promise that our pilot program just might have a future. We'd achieved a new definition of vibrancy, proving what an arts and culture organization could do to activate a neighborhood facing the challenges of a modern urban metropolis. This was the Chicago Cultural Plan in action, and our mayor was anxious to expand our reach and give access to more Chicagoans. Upon leaving, he called for us to double the parks we were serving. And a few weeks later, he went on to use Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks as a model and centerpiece for Night Out in the Parks, a citywide initiative that programs dance, theater, music, and art installations across the vast neighborhood park system of our city. Now, over 1,000 free events are offered year-round in every neighborhood. In Chicago, arts organizations are not waiting for people to come to us. We're changing the way we engage by taking our work out into the community. In the summer of 2015, Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks completed our 4th year, touring to 18 parks and welcoming more than 30,000 audience members. And although we've expanded our tour, we've maintained our relationships with the original 11 neighborhoods, focusing on repeated visits and genuinely collaborating with our community partners. While we offer opportunities for our parks guests to come to our home on Navy Pier, this is not the goal for our program. Our metrics for success lie in authentic engagement and increased growth of audiences. And as you can see, our parks have experienced double, many triple-digit increases in attendance over the last 4 years. And this program was started by, and continues to be managed by, the leadership of our organization. Here is our Executive Director, Chris Henderson, with his daughter, and our Artistic Director, Barbara Gaines. From the beginning, they have been joined by leadership across departments in managing this program. Our collective ownership ensures that these productions in the community are given the same level of attention as our productions at our theaters on Navy Pier. We believe that Shakespeare speaks to everyone. It is important to us that we truly serve as Chicago's Shakespeare Theater. And Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks has made everyone at our institution better Chicagoans. We have turned our gaze beyond our artistic downtown home and embraced the 77 neighborhoods that comprise our great city. We have continued to deepen access to this great work by broadening the parks we tour to and adding accessibility programming, such as sign language interpretation and audio description. We have become a more inclusive, more knowledgeable, more connected theater company. Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks sits alongside our extraordinary productions of classical and new work, international imports and exports, and education programs as a 4th pillar of our company. It has created a new model for how artists and arts administrators can engage in the cities we serve. And, moving beyond the traditional ticketing model and beyond the free programs held at our institution, it has allowed us to address the true barriers that prevent audiences from engaging in our work. Our learning has been reinforced by recent findings from the January 2015 NEA research report, when the going gets tough, barriers and motivations affecting arts attendance. This new evidence shows that there are more than 30 million Americans who want to participate in the arts but aren't able to due to concerns like cost and convenience. The Parks Tour directly addresses some of the most commonly cited barriers, including lack of time, especially among parents with young children, ease of travel to attend the cultural performance, or not having anyone to attend the cultural event with you. Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks successfully circumnavigates these barriers. Thinking back to 2009 and that study from the University of Chicago, it's amazing what one program can accomplish and catalyze for a city. Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks moved the proverbial needle from cultural policy to authentic community engagement. We are extremely proud of what the program has accomplished for us as an institution and for Chicago as a global city. Thank you.